Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. Just doing a sound check at home for those online. Can you just let me know if you can hear this okay, please?
Right, well, let me just I thought I'd kill this sound on this machine. Let's try again. Right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 78th Annual General Meeting of the Society of Model Aeronautical Engineers Limited, here at blustery but sunny Buckminster. Particularly welcome to those of you who've made the effort to be here, and I believe we've got how many online, Andy? 36 clubs registered online, so thank you for that. Now, as this is a hybrid meeting, there are a few points of etiquette that I should remind you of so that hopefully it can run smoothly. As you probably realise, Andy Simmons, our club support officer, will be the meeting manager, and he'll be controlling the various cameras and microphones and coordinating questions and votes when we come round to that. Those of you who are logged on as attendees should have received a comprehensive delegates guide, but we'll talk you through the voting process as and when it comes to it. And if you haven't already done so, then please record your attendance in the Zoom chat box. Now, members are all requested to submit any questions in advance on using the online form. We did receive one comprehensive question regarding the accounts, and our finance director will answer that as part of his presentation. Should any of you wish to ask any questions during the meeting, then you should either type your question in the Q&A box or use the raised hand icon on Zoom at the bottom of the screen. And Andy will then enable you to speak, but I would hope that we can keep questions during the meeting to a minimum if possible. The voting procedure for both simple ballots and card votes was explained in the guide, but again, we'll talk you through it at the appropriate time. And finally, I shall be asking for a proposer and seconder for various items on the agenda. It's likely that these will come from people in the room, but if you would like to respond online, then again, please click on the hand icon to raise your hand on the screen. For those of you in the room, please raise your arm, and if you want to attract my attention, then stand up, wait for the microphone, which Lisa will bring round, and then announce your name and the club you're representing before making any comments. And when voting, please hold up your pink voting cards. I think that about covers the essentials, but before we move on to the first item, there are a few points to note. First of which is to record apologies for absence. And we've received those from Sir Michael Alcock, our president, Bob McAlpine, Roger Hopkinson, vice presidents, from Paul Masterman, fellow, Tony Butterworth, fellow, Dave Rudd, fellow, Peter Hellman, fellow, and the Ulster Model Flying Club. The next point is to record proxies, and we've received 3 proxy applications. One was from Croydon and District Model Aircraft Club, appointing Martin Dilley, fellow. However, because the club, although they have 10 members, only 4 of them register Croydon as their primary club, and therefore they don't carry a vote according to our Articles of Association. But we do have valid proxies from Mid Sussex Flyers, who have appointed Epsom RFC, and Ashdown Forest Flyers, who appoint Epsom RFC. And the final point before we start the formal part of the meeting is to note significant bereavements since the last AGM. I'm sure many of us have lost good friends and colleagues during the year. But 2 significant ones from the association point of view. Terry Bailey, a fellow, passed away earlier this year. And a name that will be familiar to most of the visitors here, Alan Collick, who was one of our long-time volunteers. And we certainly miss his smiling face on the grass cutters here at Buckminster. Where are we? Okay, so let's move on now to item 1 on the agenda, which is to receive the minutes of the 77th Annual General Meeting held here on the 2nd of November 2024. And you will recall last year we had to hold an extraordinary general meeting 3 weeks after the AGM in order to approve the accounts and the budget. So we'll be taking that as a separate set of minutes to approve. So the minutes of the major meeting on the 2nd of November, they've been circulated and posted on the website for the requisite time. We haven't had any notification of any amendments prior to the meeting. Does anyone have any amendments of fact or corrections of fact before we move on to the proposer and seconder for the meeting? Okay, White Horse Model Club, have a question? Yes, please. Yeah.
Attended the AGM and the EGM last year. The EGM shows the White Horse Body Club in attendance as sort of online participant, but the AGM doesn't show us at all on there.
Just checking. Our office manager shows White Horse MC listed as being present at the 77th AGM. So under the list of clubs on page 1.
I'm not actually seeing that on the copy of the minutes that I've got.
Not on the minutes that you have?
No.
Well, the formal set of minutes that I shall be signing at the end, once they're approved, certainly has White Horse listed as being present.
That's an online attendee.
Okay, are you happy with that?
Yeah, if it's there, that's fine. Yeah.
Good. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions then? In which case, can I invite someone who was present at the meeting to propose that we accept the minutes? Name and club, please. Sorry. Helipad. Dave Smith, Helipad, proposing. Thank you. And a seconder. Andrew Green, Peterborough. Thank you. Right, ready for a vote then, please. Okay, those in the room, if you could raise your hands while we count those online. Is that 22 in the room? Yeah. 22 in the room, and I've got percentages, but I haven't got a factual number. So that's online 29 for, 4 abstentions, and plus 22 in the room. Okay, any abstentions in the room? 1. Any against in the room? No. Right, thank you. That's carried unanimously. And we now move on to the minutes of the EGM held on the 26th of November, which was the meeting to approve the accounts and budget. Again, haven't had any corrections posted online. Does anyone have any corrections of fact for those minutes before we seek a proposer? No? Okay, could I invite a proposer then from someone who was present at the EGM, which you recall was an online EGM, to accept those minutes? Duncan McClure, representing Flying Aces, yeah. And a seconder, please. South Link Soarers, thank you. Sir Simon B. Okay, ready for a vote again then, please. Okay, those in favour? Sixteen? That's 16 in the room. Okay, anyone abstaining in the room? 1, 2. Anyone against in the room? Thank you. We've got 74% for and 26% again, abstaining. Sorry, abstaining. No, abstaining, not against. So sorry, can you just repeat those figures? 20? 25, yeah. And 9. Splendid. That completes item 1 then. Thank you. We move on to item 2, which is to consider and adopt the company report up to the 31st of August 2025. Excuse me. This is where I need to lubricate my throat briefly. Right. Well, as the Society is a limited company, we're required to submit an annual report to Companies House that describes the operational and financial conditions of the Society. The statutory accounts cover the financial aspects, and the narrative report summarises operational activities. Our articles of association require the membership to adopt the annual report before it's submitted to Companies House, which is why both the accounts and the written report have to be made available to members for at least 21 days prior to this meeting. I don't propose to repeat much of the narrative report here, as usual, but there are just a few points that I would like to pick up on. The report provides a detailed summary by each elected officer of their activities and assessment of the past year from their perspective. And we also invite area and technical committees and senior BMFA staff to submit a report in order to keep members informed of what they've been doing on their behalf, and also to provide a historic record of the Society's activities. I must particularly thank everyone who submitted a report this year. I think this is the first year in my knowledge that we've had almost a full house from every area, every technical committee, and every other delegate that we invite to report. So thank you for that. And I'd also just like to put on record the to note the important contribution made by those area delegates who are non-executive directors. Looking at our membership, it's been very encouraging to see membership numbers stabilising somewhat this year, and we end 2025 slightly up on last year's figures. Currently, as of yesterday, 27,662 members and 905 clubs and youth groups. However, we can't be complacent with these figures because they now include the Large Model Association and the Scottish Area Modellers Association, who we were delighted to take under our wing as associate bodies earlier this year. It's a sign of the times that after many years operating successfully as independent bodies, that neither were able to find sufficient volunteers to run their own businesses independently. And that's a situation that's reflected by the lack of nominees coming forward for our own elected posts, particularly as board members and on area committees. So I would say, whilst I have clubs registered online and listening, that if you're in a position to contribute or feel that you could do a better job than those in post, then please don't hide your light under a bushel and put yourself forward for election. We acknowledge that recruiting at club level is fundamental to sustaining the future of model flying, and we're pleased to launch the Club of the Year award this year, instigated and adjudicated by the Areas Council. This is not so much a competition as recognition of those clubs that do the basics very well and from which others can learn. And I'm pleased that the inaugural award of the Robin Gowler Trophy will be made by Robin's widow at the awards dinner in a fortnight's time. And the award this year will be going to Impington Village College Model Aeroplane Club. Turning to finance, after the difficulties we faced last year, it's pleasing that we've been able to present a set of audited accounts today that show they reflect the savings measures that we put in place and the contingency planning previously instituted by our finance directors. And certainly, I think when you see the presentation from the finance director, you'll realise that we're in a stronger position this year than we were 12 months ago. One of the criticisms of our previous management structure was that the full council was too focused on operational matters and lacked strategic direction. It carried too much inertia to implement change. And in this regard, the board's main priority this year, led by our honorary secretary, has been to undertake a strategic risk assessment that in turn has generated strategic priorities at board and operational levels. And these also inform business continuity, because we appreciate that we have several key players, such as our chief executive, for example, that without them we would seriously struggle to continue. The details of that plan are in the honorary secretary's report, and if you haven't read it, I do commend you to it. The other point is that delegation of more autonomy for operational matters to the area and technical councils seems to have reinvigorated what had largely become talking shops, so with little authority. So I'm very pleased to see the direction that those two councils are running. Finally, it's customary for me to acknowledge our sporting successes in the international arena, and this has been another exceptional year. In World and European Championships, the BMFA has supported teams across Europe and to the USA, including indoor duration, free flight, F3A aerobatics, F3CN helicopters, F3K gliding, F3D pylon racing, and space. We have a new individual world champion, Neil Allen, who won the gold medal in F1C free flight power, and Mark Benz won a silver medal in F1Q at the same championships in Romania. The F3N freestyle helicopter team brought home a world team gold, with Duncan Osborne taking the individual silver medal, also in Romania. The space team won a team bronze in class S7, and Sharon Robinson Carver added to her own medal collection with a silver in the S4A female class in Serbia. Heartiest congratulations to them all, and good luck to the F1D indoor duration team heading off to the European Championships in Romania later this month. And just to wrap up, it would be remiss of me not to mention the exciting prospect that the BMFA will be hosting the F4 Scale World Championships here at Buckminster in 2026. A few interesting facts came out of a recent discussion with the chair of the SIAM Scale Subcommittee. This is the first Cat 1. Cat 1, that means a European or World Championships, or I should say a continental or World Championships. It's the first Cat 1 air modelling event held in the UK for over 20 years. We think the last one was the F5D electric pylon racing on the Knavesmire at York in 2004, we think 2004. It's the first time that regular webinars have been held with participants across the world in any competition class, which is really bearing fruit as far as engaging with the other countries. It's likely that we'll see a record entry for F4. We've got 105 potential participants already registered. The current record is 76, which just shows the interest that the UK is generating worldwide. Judging team will be required from all 5 continents for the first time since 1998. And a total of 24 countries are expected to be involved in some way. So it's looking to be a massive event. The planning team are doing a fantastic job, but there's still lots of roles up for grabs. So if you'd like to get involved in helping to organise that championships, then please do volunteer. So that completes my brief review of the past year. I commend the company report. It's quite a lengthy document, but if you haven't read it, I think it's a good summary of what the BMFA, our areas and clubs have been doing over the year. And I'd now invite a proposer and seconder to accept the report before we send it to Companies House. Thank you. Gordon Warburton, club, please. Fellow, sorry, Gordon Warburton Fellow, of course. Yes. And Graham Kennedy Fellow, seconded. Can we have a vote now then, please, Andy, to accept the company report?
Graham Kennedy Fellow.
Graham Kennedy, has it? Yeah.
As fellow.
Yeah.
Please show.
Right. Sorry, show of hands, yeah. Figures? Figures?
24.
24. Thank you.
20.
24, yeah.
In favour.
Anyone in the room abstaining or against? No, thank you. And online we have 97% for and 33 for and one abstention.
33 and 1, yeah.
Yeah, right. Thank you all. And again, thank you to everyone who's contributed to what's a very interesting and comprehensive report. Right, time for me to take a break from the microphone now and to item 3, when we consider and adopt the accounts and balance sheet for the financial year ended the 31st of March. I shall hand over to our newly elected Finance Director, Keith Lomax Fellow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can we flip into the slides now to put online? Okay, so as ever, when we present the accounts, there are 2 documents that you need to be aware of. The first is the annual report and accounts, which is a brief summary of the numbers, which is what we submit to Companies House. And the second is the supplementary information. Can that be turned down a little bit? It's very ringy. Yeah. The second is the supplementary information, which has got the more details, and that's an internal document for ourselves, information for the members, how we actually spend the money, rather than just the summary information. And this year I also put a brief text document highlighting some of the key features of the accounts that was available for you to download on the website if you're interested. First thing is to note some corrections to the accounts. As a result, as the chairman mentioned, we had some a complex set of questions submitted by my predecessor, Mike Woodhouse Fellow, which resulted in some changes being made because he spotted an error, and it was a fairly significant error in the income and expenditure account, which related to, once we dug into it, the national centre surplus was incorrectly reported in the income and expenditure page, which then affected the balance sheet of the annual accounts. That had fed through from the supplementary information into the annual accounts. And there were some smaller errors as well which we corrected along the way. So the version 2s were posted on Tuesday on the website. Some of you may have seen them and downloaded them. If you did, unfortunately, the supplementary document that was posted, the pagination was all to pot because the way Adobe Acrobat created the pages, so it probably wasn't a lot of help to you if you did download it. So collectively, we apologise for that. Hopefully the story that I'll tell you now will tell you a bit more about it. So let's talk now about the correction to the National Centre surplus. So if you see on the left-hand side, this is the page from the supplementary information on page 7, where you'll see that there's a general donation, which is circled, of 11,506 of general donations. But when that went through into the summary page, that was omitted on page 1 of the supplementary. So the total that was used correcting the surplus of 28,063 was lower than the figure of 39 something or other that was used in the values that went into the annual reserves. And that difference of 11 and a bit thousand carried through and caused the balance sheet not to balance. And there's also a different difference between the accounts, which is for those of you that understand accounts, is a technicality that Mike and I disagree on. We do, which is that on the final page of the annual accounts, there is a movement in the technical committee's funds of £5 and a bit thousand, which doesn't show in the profit and loss income and expenditure account at the start of the accounts. And that also causes a £5,000 difference in the balance sheet not balancing. Our accountant is happy that that is allowable. Mike disagrees with us. So from that perspective, I think we agree to disagree. It's not material. Okay, but so that is it's a minor difference in the balance sheet of about £5,000, but the balance sheet with that £5,000 consideration does now balance, which it didn't before. So thank Mike for bringing that to our attention. I fixed it to the tune of that £11,000 that was there. The second error that Mike pointed out is that on page 3 of the accounts, we reported the taxation at 16,142, and on page 6 of the accounts, we reported it at 16,536. And quite clearly, those two numbers should be the same, and it's the 16,142 that is the correct number. And the Excel spreadsheet had a hard-coded number instead of a lookup formula, and was quite easily fixed. And there were also a few of the pages had not had their headings updated from last year, so they showed it being as 2024 instead of 2025. So that's the corrections that have been made to the accounts that were the differences between the version 1s and the versions 2s that were posted on the website. There's another set of differences that Mike had asked me to look at that I haven't had a chance to do that affect the technical committee's funds on the back end of the supplementary information. It's a major piece of work to go through those line by line, and in the time I had available, it just was not possible to do. So if there are any changes, they'll be posted as a correction next year. So moving on now into actually what is in the accounts. Firstly, let me remind you that when I stood here and presented the budget last year, I said that we had a 3-year objective to a 3-year objective to generate a 200k surplus to cover and offset the losses that we'd made over the previous 2 years, where we were operating in deficit, to bring our reserves back to the level they were at before those losses. And at that time, we were in the 2024 budget, and we were hoping to achieve a 56,000 surplus. And in fact, as you'll see, we're reporting 112,000 surplus, of which 72,000 we'll see in a second relates to this. So that's the scenario that we're in. We're looking to generate around a 200k surplus over 3 years to put us back in the position we would be in had we not made a loss. So this year, looking at our core activity with an income of, getting close to 1.5 million, and similar amount of expenditure, we'd made an operating surplus of 58,744, some 18,500 of bank interest, just under 5,000 of taxation, would show us a surplus for the year of £72,500. So as about a third of that £200,000 we're looking for. And in parallel to that, the National Centre on turnover of £187,000 has made a surplus after tax of 36,500, which again is good news. So we'll talk about the surplus of the core activities. Why have we made a generous surplus? Firstly, as the chairman reported, our membership numbers have been better than forecast, partly because we've subsumed the Scottish Area Modellers and the Large Model Association, who've joined us as associate bodies, and also because we have lost fewer members than we were forecast losing. Obviously, membership is a very sensitive thing. Secondly, and part of Mike's legacy, is that the budget that he put forward 2 years ago, that is the year we've just done, he included £100,000 worth of contingency. And that contingency was clearly necessary. That would have covered the shock of had we lost more members than we forecast. So that has given us a benefit of, extra surplus. The next point is that this time last year, David was coming to the end of finalising the negotiations for the insurance premium, which has resulted in savings slightly over 100,000 a year, of which a quarter of that shows within this financial year. So we're starting to see that. But from those savings that would have left us with a much higher surplus, we have taken a hit on some asset revaluations, which I'm going to cover shortly. Looking at the National Centre, the £36,500 surplus on the National Centre is really a validation of the hard work that's been put in over the last 10 years by the centre team. Obviously the permanent staff that lead it, but also the many volunteers, quite a few of whom are in this room, and the staff that do work on the centre put in many more hours than they are paid for. So I think for the start, let's give them a round of applause. Yeah, because it is a job well done. We knew it was going to be a benefit to the society, and it's taken a long time, but it's really coming to out. But some of the things that have led to that surplus. Firstly, we have a few commercial bookings that are very lucrative, in particularly the IMEC have a large booking every year. The auctions are going from strength to strength. I think there's now 3 or 4 a year. Generate us a significant income in commission fees. The cafe, which was built last year and opened, generates us a surplus. The swap meets generate us money, and there's a full programme of activity through the year of the usage of the centre. All of that surplus from the centre is ring-fenced for development and further development of this centre, which is why we're not taking it into the general reserves and the surplus for the overall operating. We're keeping it completely separate. So moving on to the asset revaluation, this is a an accounting technicality. And I'm going to try and explain it so it's understandable to people that don't understand accounting, because some people do, some people don't. And starting with the trophies. Those of you that come to the annual dinner will see this lovely array of shiny silverware. It's spectacular. We've got around 200 trophies. They are sequentially numbered, and I think the numbers now go up to, I think we're up to about 168, 169, but some of them are multiples. So there are 6, like, I think it's trophy number 32. There are 6 of them, so 32.1 to 32.6 and things like that. So it's a higher number than that, but massive number of trophies. And they do look spectacular when they're polished and shiny, and an awful lot of work for the people that should polish them. So that's great. In terms of a financial asset value, though, from a purely financial point of view, they're not worth a huge amount. What could you do with them? You could melt them down for scrap, but most of them are silver plate. So they look nice, but they've got no intrinsic value. If, as a business, obviously it's not going to happen, if as a business we went bust, we couldn't sell those trophies to generate money to pay off any debtors. If we owed the tax man £500,000, we couldn't sell the trophies to pay the tax man. So they don't really have a meaningful value in purely financial terms. Similarly, what was their historic value? Well, it's a lot more than the 50-odd thousand pounds or 30-something thousand pounds that they show in our accounts as being a value. You know, if we were to replace them with like for like, some of them were fairly basic, ordinary trophy. You could buy that probably on the internet now for 200, 300, 400 quid. But some of them are really spectacular. And, you know, we've got, if anybody knows the Hamley trophy, it's a Hawker Heart. It's silver plated, but it's well made, and it's about yay wingspan. But those people that can't see it online, probably about 18-inch wingspan. It's quite heavy. It's beautiful. And everything in between. There's bronze sculptures, there's all sorts. So what's the intrinsic value to us? What's the historic value to us? It's, you know, would be way over what they show on the registers. So keeping a value in the accounts is absolutely meaningless. So from that point of view, keeping a value on the accounts and then charging a depreciation of a couple of £1,000s a year isn't really doing anything from an accounting perspective. So the advice that we had, and we cleared it through with a few people, was the best thing to do is to write that value down to 0, move the trophy value that we're carrying in the accounts into the general reserve, and just keep it as a reserve value for general development purposes. So there's a figure in the accounts, and the one thing I didn't do is write down to supplementary, is it in there? It's on page 6 of the annual accounts. There's a revaluation of trophies of 29,972, which is effectively an advanced depreciation of the next 16 or 17 years depreciation all in one go, which brings the value of the trophies then down to 0. So that's the trophies. Secondly, the equipment. If you read the company report, you'll know this year we've changed our accounting system. We've been using Sage for many years, since before I was first elected honorary treasurer. So more than 20 years we've been using Sage. And the value of the equipment has been buried in there. And you press a button and an appreciation number comes out. And we haven't really looked at the assets that are sitting behind it. When we moved the numbers over to 0, which is our new accounting system, we said, this doesn't make sense. And we tried to get into what was sitting behind it. And it still didn't make sense. The more we dug in, the worse it got. So I said, okay, let's start again. And when we looked at it, we said, well, nearly all of our assets, we spread the cost over 4 years. But the value that we were holding in assets as of now was more than we'd spent in the last 4 years. So it was clearly wrong. So over the years, the numbers had got worse and worse and worse and worse. So we said, okay, let's take a strategic view of what is the value now. So we basically straight lined over the last 4 years, a quarter of 4 years ago, 2 quarters of 3 years ago, 3 quarters of 2 years ago, and all of this year's. That's the value now, and put a revaluation in to do that, to bring it to that level, and then we can then depreciate it straight line from there onwards over the next 4 years. So that also takes a hit of £43,000, which comes off the bottom line of the profits. So between those two, we've reduced the profits from what would have been about 150,000 down to that figure of 77,000 that you see in the accounts. So that was the asset revaluation that I really needed to explain to you, because it's made our numbers look still very good, but only half as good as they could have been. And really, from the point of view of the accounts, that was all I really wanted to bring to discuss with you, unless anybody has got any further questions.
Okay, Mike Woodhouse, fellow, had a question. Can we get the microphone to him, please, Lisa?
Give me a second to have a drink of water, Mike.
It's switched on. Okay, I can hear me as well. Okay. Good start. There are still issues in the accounts, which you've already acknowledged. We need.
Mike, can you just hold till we get the microphone sorted, because it's
Okay.
we got feedback.
Is that better? Is that better? Can you hear me?
No.
Look, I can manage.
Yeah, the problem is those, Mike, without the microphone, those online won't hear what you're saying.
That doing it. How's that? Tell me when it's okay. Okay now. Right. There are still a few errors in the accounts. The one that you've actually mentioned, over that first, is on the supplementary papers, which is page 9, 10, 11, the assets, but the funds that belong to the technical committees. If you adjust that to what it should be, that will affect the accounts fund, because that will affect your total reserves. There's a definite error in there. There's 2 errors, in fact. One, the schedule itself doesn't add up. And the second one is the numbers don't agree from page to page. You know, like it said, you've got a spreadsheet, it said it later. Revote the source. Okay. The other one is the balance of the accounts. So now that comes in, it throws out the balance between the P&L account and the balance sheet. The movement on the balance sheet between the 2 years is different than the P&L account. Those 2 figures must balance. There's no, not quite, they have to balance. The movement on the balance sheet is made up of the difference of the P&L account. So the plus or minus. You can't have 2 different figures. That's not possible. So there are other small errors in there. I don't have the details, so I can't get at it. I'll tell you what we'll do if you want to. When you've got a chance, when you want to do it, I can take this lot, we can sit down, and I'll take you right through the changes. Okay, I do that. But just there, want me to do it. The other one is, I'm just going to ask questions I haven't asked, and that is about the lease. So when does the lease expire?
Of Buckminster.
Yeah.
There's 23 years left, I believe. So
Oh.
23 years from now, I believe.
I mean,
So 26 years from now.
okay, that looks about right then, because as long as we're writing down the assets that we've had at the time, they have to be amortized rather than depreciated. Tell you what the difference is on that later. Okay? The other one is, are you going to talk about budgets or?
Budgets is next. Budgets is later.
Well, look, do you want to, well, Arthur, do you want me to sit down with you and go through these bits sometime?
Possibly talk to my side.
The accounts at the
Can we
moment,
just hold a minute while this helicopter goes over the top?
Turn it off and on, Mike.
How's that one sound?
this one's obviously working. I've lost my train of thought, man. Yes, because those accounts, before they go in, that piece needs to be sorted, because at the moment, they're non-compliant.
Are you saying? Are you saying that the accounts aren't compliant,
Yes.
or I know that you mentioned some errors in the supplementary. The
Yes,
supplementary is an explanation for the membership of the
But-
detail that goes into the accounts.
the main accounts are non-compliant at the moment because of the difference. Because now, now this other piece, I've observed, that will affect the difference between the accounts and the P&L. Balance sheet and P&L. So they are non-compliant. That has to be sorted before they go in. Otherwise, you're setting a set of accounts in which don't add up.
Andy, can you just, there's some comments coming up, if you could just have a quick look at them.
Imagine it's to say they can't hear it, so you get anything out of them.
There you go. I think that's sorted the issue with the views from those online. As far as I'm aware, the major issues with the accounts, which was your initial question, which was the lack of the national centre, donations, which has been included. Now that's now been corrected.
Yeah, that Ian has been corrected. That was
What?
Mike's initial concern related to 16 and a bit thousand, 16.4, I think it was, of which that was 11,500. And the difference is 5,300 and something. Which I know exactly what it is. And our accountant says that because of the way it's presented in the accounts, it's acceptable. And Mike thinks it's not. Mike says it's not in Mike's interpretation of the accounting standards.
That other piece doesn't make a balance. Out of balance again. They must balance. There's no.
Well, it looks to me as though the accounts, as presented here, do balance. There might be errors in the supplementary, but the account. The development reserves carry through £905, 920.
They change. They're not
I thought technical committee money was kept out of the reserves because it's separate. Sorry? Technical committee funds are their own. They're not part of the general reserve. Any observation on that?
Yeah, so the bit that Mike is referring to is the last third of a page on page 7 of the accounts. And specifically the line technical committee's funds, which has got a brought forward figure of 105,000, a movement of 5136 and a carried forward figure of 110,000. And that is the summary of 3 pages of the supplementary information. That's correct, isn't it, Mike? Yes. And in particular, in the supplementary, oh, so on page 10 of the supplementary, the top half of that page is a table that splits by team travel, contest fund, free flight nationals, silent flight nationals, and world champ come up with those same totals, which the before the starting and ending number are the same, but the movement in between is incorrect in those numbers, because that 11,000 is wrong.
The reason it's wrong is that top number is 672 should have brackets on.
Yeah.
So when you count it down, you get different total apart, you get different movement.
Yeah, but the 105 and the 110 are correct.
They're not correct, so it's an error. Okay, on the free flight national that shows on there 1600 lots. But if you look at the details and things like that, it shows the wrong.
4. Yeah. So you're saying that 110,000 is out by £1,600. And that's the bit that I said to you about 15 minutes ago, we can post as a correction to next year. It can be posted as a correction, Mike.
So we're talking about a total, an error in the region of
£1,600.
£1,600 in a budget of over one and a half million, which I think is as chairman, that's an error that I'd be prepared to sign off in order to get these accounts. If it's provided it can be corrected next year, otherwise we're going to have to defer, reinvestigate the whole thing and then have another EGM in order to approve them.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. I don't see in which way they're not compliant. If there's the supplementaries are an information piece for.
Yeah. They affect the numbers, Mike, by about 0.15%, which is not material. Materiality is 1% on an account of this size.
Okay, so our finance director, are you proposing that the accounts are close enough to be proposed for submission?
Yes.
Subject to a small correction to be made next year?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the proposal from the finance director.
I would be happy to propose that to the room.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that action? Peterborough? Okay, we appreciate your points, Mike, but yes. Okay, well, it's yeah, which we appreciate. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Helen, microphone.
So in agreeing to sign off the accounts with the correction, we are totally confident that that is that we are okay with that legally?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
and I'm happy.
Okay, can we move its seconded motion? So can we put that to a vote then, please? Okay, those in favour of accepting the accounts and a minor correction to be included in next year's account?
I've got a 7 on the floor this side.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
17.
Okay, thank you. And any in the room against? One. Anyone abstaining? 2 abstentions. Three abstentions. 3 abstentions. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And now we move on to item 4, which is to approve the budget for the ensuing financial year.
Okay, so hopefully this will be a little bit easier. Moving into the budget for the financial year, starting next April. I'm presenting a budget just for our core activities. So bearing in mind, as I said, about the 3-year cycle, the accounts that we've just seen were the first year of that 3-year cycle to generate a £20,000 surplus. The year we're currently in now is the second, so this will be the final year of that 3-year plan. And as I mentioned earlier, the National Centre is now generating its own revenue to stand on its own 2 feet, and any surpluses generated from the National Centre will be ring-fenced for its own developments. So it doesn't need a standalone budget of its own for membership approval. So first of all, membership numbers. The current budget that the year we're working to now, and obviously it gets confusing because the membership year and the accounting year are skewed, but we generally work on the membership that ends in December during that financial year is the one we consider for the accounts. So in our current budget, we're based on a budget of 26,500 members, but in fact, we're just over 1,000 more than that. And that, as I said, represents an increase slightly versus 142 versus the same time last year. Fewer than anticipated losses. We've talked about the SAA and the LAA. So I'm, for prudence reasons, conservative reasons, forecasting that we stay again for 26,500 for the forecast for this time next year. So we've got the contingency in the budget there for, if membership does continue to decline, hopefully it'll decline slower than that. We'll lose less than 1,000 and we'll be in good shape. So the numbers in the accounts for insurance, you'll see if you've looked at the budget, it's been online for about 3 weeks. The total insurance costs now are 296,000 compared to the previous budget, which was well over 400,000. As at this time last year, negotiations were on stage. And we now have new brokers, new underwriters, new policy structure, and the premium savings that Dave negotiated in excess of 100,000, which has stood us in a very good, strong position. Moving on to staffing. All of our staff put in, and I'd say many more hours than are contracted for. We've budgeted an inflationary increase, but it's notable, and we've discussed this at board several times on the executive, that we don't have any succession plan. We don't have any cover in place if any member of staff were to have any long-term sickness. Despite the membership decreasing, the workload is increasing. There's more to be done with regulators. There's more to be done at the National Centre. There's more to be done with things that need doing, with things like, you know, the auctions. That obviously comes under the National Centre. You know, everybody is being run ragged. So therefore, we've budgeted, and I've expressed it separately, for an additional member of the team at a senior level to work across various aspects of the business, to build in resilience, to build in succession plan, and depending on the experience of the person that we eventually hire, the priorities will then be agreed between the board and with Dave, Manny, Andy and Linda as to exactly what role that person will fulfil when they come on board, and then hopefully everybody else's workload will relax slightly. No doubt with the people we've got in, they won't spend more time with their families because they'll still keep coming here. They'll still keep doing what they've been doing for the past 10, 15 years. And we'll still be nagging them to spend more time with their families. But that's just life on the executive and how we deal with our staff. But yes, we do want to ease the workload of the staff by taking on an extra member of staff. So there's a £40,000 salary. Obviously, that depends on, you know, negotiations with whoever we recruit. But to take on somebody for £40,000, you've then got to factor in again about another £8,000 for national insurance, pension costs, and things like that. Some other changes. Area support. When we were in a slightly tighter financial position a few years ago, might reduce that from 25,000 to 15. We are very conscious of the work that is done in the areas, that is where the outreach happens. It's where things, you know, people are engaged. And, you know, the board took note of that earlier this year. And internally, we reintroduced that back to 25,000 anyway. But in terms of this budget, it's, you know, for formal approval at 25,000. Public relations, the overall cost of public relations has been dropping over time. And, you know, the current budget we're working to, is 50,000, but last year we only spent 30,000 and we're still budgeting for 50,000 again. And the reason we're looking to put more in is because, as you may have heard, we're hosting World Championships here next year. And there will be some opportunities for hopefully some press days, some VIP days. And we obviously don't want the event to be funding the cost of that, because the event has got to cover its own costs, and doing stuff that is good PR for model flying in general, for the BMFA as a whole, shouldn't come from the cost of running the event. So we've put extra PR budget in to cope with those things. And of course, outreach, and Helen, sitting in the front row at the centre, is leading our outreach team with support from numerous other people in the room and beyond. And again, this is another group of people that took on what started to be a small role and has mushroomed out of all proportion. Yeah, looking at her face, she's agreeing. And so we've increased the outreach budget to cope with, to allow for the work that Helen is doing, mostly with youth groups and schools, mostly in the Midlands, because that's where she happens to be based. But it's, again, it's growing, and, you know, who knows where it's going to go next. You'll see a new line in the budget, something you've never seen before, called International Team Development. What this is a reboot of the previous Training and Excellence, which had sort of was a lot of money being spent supporting the existing team members and wasn't really showing any great benefits because it wasn't being focused. The sporting director has asked that we recreate it, but in a different shape, and it's going to be managed very closely by the sporting director, the technical director, and the technical council in such a way that they actually look closely at the budgets that the technical committees are putting forward and how they're planning to spend this money, and they will be the final approval of any team development in much the same way that the areas council oversees the allocation of the areas funding budget. And international team development is showing in the accounts initially at £10,000, and that will be used not just for the existing team members, but also for up and coming team members to potentially allow development and growth in excellence and the people that take us forwards. BMFA News is shown in the budget as 35k income and 65k expenditure. Previously, we've just budgeted a net figure, so that's just a clarification, and it's better accounting to split the two out separately. I just draw your attention to subscriptions in there. What shows in here as subscriptions is external bodies that we pay a subscription to, of which by far the largest is the Royal Aero Club. And the Royal Aero Club, by far their biggest expenditure is the FAI. Now, FAI's costs have gone up over the years, partly due to the fact that they budget in Swiss francs, so that we have exchange rates to factor in. But on top of that, the Royal Aero Club passes all of their costs directly onto their member associations, of which we're the biggest. And unfortunately, one of the other large players withdrew from the Royal Aero Club early this year, which is the Light Aircraft Association. Well, it's all late last year. Yeah, last year, the Light Aircraft Association withdrew. So their share of the FAI's cost has now got to be met by the other FAI member bodies. So the FAI subscription has gone up by about 18% this year. However, on a positive front, I talked about the fact earlier that the budget that Mike presented 2 years ago included a £100,000 contingency on the basis of the shock of if we were to lose too many members. Now that the loss of members has stabilised, we felt that we'll still leave a contingency in there, but reduce it to 50,000, which will still cope with a loss of members more than we were forecasting. There's still an extra 1,000 members more than we're forecasting to lose. Which leaves us on to where we're looking to generate the subscriptions to meet all of this expenditure and to make the books balance on the basis of that, and to generate a surplus that's going to contribute towards this 5-year target that 3-year target that I keep coming back to, of putting the money back in the bank. If we were to increase the senior subscriptions and the family partner subscriptions both by £2, which would make the seniors 51, family partners 32, and then leaving the juniors and family juniors untouched at where they are now, would leave us with a surplus for the year of, well, can't find the bit of paper, about £57,000. And so that is the budget that I commend to you, and I would like to invite questions before I propose it. Sorry.
Yeah. There we go. Right. Okay. Questions from Mike Woodhouse.
As you say, divorce the centre from the main budget. Should we have a budget for the centre? We need to know what's coming in, what's going out, how it's going. We try, that's only part of the budget there, because the centre cost is quite high, relatively speaking to the rest of it. We should see a budget. We should see the income from the auctions, from the budget day tickets, we should see expenses towards where the money's coming from, where it's going.
We possibly should, yes. But the purpose of this discussion is primarily to inform setting the membership fees for next year, which, as the centre now is standing on its own 2 feet, we don't need that for setting the membership fees.
I thought the plan, because of moving from Leicester to get everything here, was to have one centre.
Well, exactly, which is why we've got one budget.
Yeah, well, yeah, we haven't got one budget.
Yes, we haven't got, at the moment, we haven't got the national centre activities within this budget, Ian.
Yeah.
It's my
It doesn't show. Because that could impact on the fees that we need to charge. If we make a surplus here, the surplus then has to be used in such a way as to benefit both the centre and the membership. So if you make a hefty surplus here, the membership could quite rightly ask, hang on, why are you putting the fees up with X number and you make all this money at the centre? We need to divvy this up. You should have both. You can't sign off a budget which is incomplete.
I don't see it as being incomplete. I see it as being related.
That's it. No, incomplete. What you're looking at here, we're standing in up the centre.
Yeah.
The membership should know for its budget where the money's coming from, where the money's going. So I don't see how. I didn't realise this until I actually downloaded it, and I couldn't find the centre budget. If it's separate, it should be. But the whole game originally was to put everything here, you know, and then we had a small office at Leicester. And you could actually see how well the centre is performing. Now, through the various other activities, what are they contributing? You know, that money runs these auctions.
Yeah.
Okay, we get the money in, we make a.
Which it does show in the accounts.
Yeah, you should be able to show that.
Which it does show in the accounts.
Doesn't. It shows in the accounts, but it doesn't show this budget. We've only
Yeah.
got half a story. It's incomplete. Sorry.
But the purpose of this budget is to set the subscriptions for the core business activities for the next year. Which,
It says the budget for this BMFA, SMAE, doesn't say that. This is what
Yeah.
the AGM has always been for, to set the budget for this organisation for the
Yes.
forthcoming year. And then what we've got now is a change that's been made, and the first time a lot of people that know about this change are here. I didn't know about this change that was going to happen until we spoke the other
but
day.
in the past, the subscriptions have been supporting the budget when they've been able to do so. If we made a surplus, we've been using it to.
We've had a whole budget, we've had a whole financial setup. What we've got now is you're presenting a budget, it's only part of it. So it's incomplete. You need to see the total picture for the BMFA. You've done the accounts of the BMFA, which includes both all the activities. Now you're asking for the budget, just a piece of it. We need to see the whole picture. You can't do it that way. It's not good business practice. It's not how businesses run. So we'll do this piece later. You've got to do it all in one hit. Sorry to say it to you, but until we came here, that wasn't until we spoke on Tuesday. Was it Tuesday?
Back then,
So we spoke on Tuesday. I was not aware that anything that I'd seen in I read everything. As you know, I'm all reading stuff and write about things. I didn't see that written anywhere It's a decision that's been made by the executive, it's not in the board minutes, I can see anything in the board minutes. To say this is what was going to happen. We were going to divorce the centre from the main operation.
But it's always been presented as a separate budget
Yes,
alongside,
yes,
because, and in the past, it's been a deficit budget with money coming from the subscriptions to top it up.
yeah, but we announced a year or so ago that we brought everything here to the centre and we'd run the operation from here. That's how it's going to be. That's going to be, the staff are going to be here, the resource, everything was going to happen here. We're going to have a little presence in Leicester to do some various work, because that's it. It was better. But we had a total budget. What we produced. We produced a total budget for everything. Showing the income and expenditure. Yeah, but now what we've done, without prior knowledge or prior discussion, the membership are not aware of this.
Yeah, I think you're right that we do need to reintroduce the National Centre budget, which we had in the past as an information sheet. The question is, does that have any impact on the annual subscriptions? Because
Yes.
basically what this proposal is for is to set the annual subscriptions.
Yeah, but at the moment, what we've got, it might not have an effect, but what we've got, AGM, for the Society of Modern Engineers or whatever, BMFA, to discuss stuff and set the budget for next year. Then suddenly, the PSAM's not there.
Yeah, what this is saying is that the annual subscription is based on running the business, and that the National Centre, whether it makes a profit or a loss, doesn't impact on setting the subscriptions, because it was right at the very beginning. It was an undertaking that subscriptions would not be increased in order to support the National Centre. So the National Centre stands or falls on its own 2 feet. We need that information, but it doesn't have an impact on the on the annual subscription. That's the point. Well, for the AGM, we've approved the budget. Sorry, we've approved the accounts and seen yes. But we don't. But the AGM doesn't approve the budget for running the centre. The centre essentially runs. It doesn't necessarily run itself, but it's not germane to the overall income of the society.
Yeah, is germane to the society. And what we've got is a piece of history. There's nothing to say in that the notice is calling this AGM that we're not going to discuss this. It's not going to be included. It's separate. There's nothing about it. It's mentioned. Nobody knew. I didn't know. I followed the event what it gets up to. I didn't know. There was nothing been written, said, or that this is how we're going to operate because of what it was doing and what it was achieving. So I don't see how we can actually agree the finances. That's what we're doing. But the finances in overall total for the Society of Aeronautical Engineers being that way.
If we don't know what the income and expenditure of the centre is going to be.
We've got seven accounts. We've got this.
Well, you're allowed to speak. You didn't. So just for the benefit of those online, just announce your name and club. Thanks. Yeah.
Peter.
We either have to go and have another extra board meeting, or we have to go through the con. And dear Michael, the point you're making, I've listened to, and I think you are technically correct. But in terms of practice and practicality, I would suggest that we need to move the meeting on. We should, in my view, accept what we have, having taken note of what Michael has said, and subsequently then make those adjustments that we agree to. Otherwise, we're here all afternoon going nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Right, thank you, Mike. Yes. So that was a question from online, was it? He put his hand down. Okay. Right, so the proposal from the finance director.
If you bring it back on screen, Andy.
Yeah. Is for a sub-inflationary increase of £2 on senior membership and family partner membership, with no change to junior and family juniors. Do we have a seconder for that proposal? Seconder, Dave Smith. Helipad, thank you. Can we move that then to a vote in the room, please, and online? Those in favour?
Make it 19. I make it 19.
Gordon's got two.
We don't have two. We don't have those.
19?
I made it 19.
Okay, so
Yeah, that's 19 for in the room. Any against in the room? And against in the room or abstentions?
Any against?
Against? No, no, or nor abstaining? No.
Any abstentions?
No. And online we have, please. So that's 54 in favour and two against, no abstentions. Thank you very much. And points are noted, Mike, and we will ensure that we include the full budget for the National Centre within the budget for next year.
You just voted.
No, sorry, put three back up, Andy.
It's all inclusive within the same vote.
Dave. Accepts the budget as presented.
Mr. Chair, may I read out the
Yes.
actual proposal? The actual proposal is that we voted on is to approve the budget for the ensuing financial year. Sorry, let me finish, please. And to fix subscriptions payable by the members in each category for 2026.
Yes.
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 So that's 18 in the room
Yeah.
and
So
one
that's-
against.
So it's 18 in the room and one against. Yeah, thanks. Right. Thank you for your support on that one. Next item 5 is, you'll recall, generally speaking, item 5 is to appoint the auditors for the ensuing financial year and fix their remuneration. The board have discussed this at length. As you're aware, this is the second year that we've had issues with the approval of the budget and the accounts, but primarily because we've been with the same accountant firm for over 10 years, and it's good practice that every now and then, at a regular interval, businesses should review their accounting arrangements and so on. So the board agreed that it was time that we tested the market and invite tenders to appoint new auditors. So we couldn't do that prior to the AGM because we're still working with the existing auditor in order to finalise the budget and so on. So what we're seeking at item 5 is to authorise the board to invite tenders for appointment of an auditor for the ensuing financial year and to fix the remuneration. I'm proposing that as chairman of the board. Can we have a seconder for that action? Seconded, Mike Woodhouse, fellow. Thought you might. I proposed it as chairman. So can we have a vote, please, to authorise the board to take that action?
Seconded by Mike.
Seconded by Mike, yeah. You can only hold up one piece of paper, Mike. Yeah.
You got two, Mike, you got two. You got two cards. Oh, right, couldn't see. 50. Just the one.
So that's 22-4 in the room. Thank you. Any abstentions in the room? Or anyone against? No, thank you. And 100% for online. 35.
Carried
Right.
unanimously.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. Right. Now we come to the nicest part of the afternoon, and that's to consider the board's recommendation for the election of fellows to the society. And my pleasure to hand over to our honorary secretary, Paul Hoey, to lead us through it.
Excuse me. I think this is the best bit of my job. This is a citation for a for an election as a fellow of the Society to Mark Benz. No cheering yet, please. Mark has long been an active and dedicated aeromodeler, as a member of both his local club and at a national level, having joined the BMFA and Peterborough Model Flying Club in 1978. In 2006, Mark joined the Indoor Technical Committee and has remained a constant member. To support and his support and expertise he offers has helped to steer the discipline through some tough times, which were exacerbated through the loss of the Cardington airship hangar site to the film industry. In 2016, he also joined the Free Flight Technical Committee, which led to his election and appointment to the BMFA board, first as honorary secretary, and subsequently in 2022, he became sporting director. As sporting director, he hit the ground running by reviewing the team manager handbooks and the way teams were funded. This role is a vital one due to the numerous teams that are selected to represent Great Britain and the BMFA. In turn, this entailed ensuring the teams and team managers and budgets are agreed by the Technical Council. He also acts as Vice Chair of the BMFA Technical Council and remains a member of the Free Flight Technical Committee. It is worth noting at this point that Mark himself has been the team manager at numerous international championships. He helped the BMFA to find our Buckminster National Centre through his contacts within the Buckminster estate. Then he carried out a professional build contract in his role as an architect to renovate and extend the premises. Latterly, he created the design and technical solution for the creation of the new Buckminster Cafe. He also continually seeks to find new flying sites for both indoor and outdoor model flying. He continues to be active in the governance of the Society on the indoor and free flight technical committees, the BMFA Honorary Secretary, and currently as the BMFA Sporting Director. In 2015, he received the Chairman's Award, also known as the Kath Watson Bowl, for excellent administration. Okay. As a model flyer, Mark has held many national titles. In the indoor disciplines, in F1D, F1R, F1L, LRS, and has won the Sweet Pete Trophy 15 times in the F1 class. In the Free Flight Nationals, he has held national titles in hand launch glider in 4 consecutive years, CLG, F1S, combined rubber, and combined electric. In 2005, he set an international world record for indoor hand-launched glider, the F1N class, of 84.8 seconds. At the Indoor World Championships, he has represented Great Britain 7 times, achieving 2 team bronzes and 2 team silvers. At the European Indoor Championships, he's represented Great Britain 7 times, achieving 3 team silvers. The best bit now. Finally, the elusive individual medal was achieved at this year's Free Flight World Championships when he was awarded a silver medal in the F1 class. It's my pleasure to invite Keith Lomax as chair of the award committee to make the proposal that Mark be elected to a fellowship.
Of course, I would be honoured to do so, Mr. Chairman. I propose that this meeting elects Mark Baines to the fellowship of the Society.
Do we have a seconder?
Sorry. Seconded by
Seconded by the
Mike
room.
Woodhouse. Mike Woodhouse. Hello, thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask Ian Pallister as chair of the Society.
Shall we have a vote?
Need a vote.
We need a vote.
We need a vote.
Do we really?
We do.
We do for
Formality.
due diligence, yes.
Those in favour in the room? Yes. Anyone against in the room? Or any abstentions?
Against,
Against or abstentions? No. I
Against.
think it's unanimous.
unanimous.
And unanimous online. So thank you very much, and heartiest congratulations. Welcome today. We would normally invite our president to make this presentation, but as I mentioned at the beginning, unfortunately, Sir Michael isn't available. But I spoke to him on the phone last night, and he certainly hopes to be joining us for the awards dinner with his wife, Lady Pauline, where we will re-present the certificate. But the formal part is to be made at the AGM, so I have great pleasure in awarding the certificate to Mark. Right, that completes item 6. We now move on to item 7, which is to receive the results of nominations for the elected officers and technical committees. Sorry. We've got an online hand up from Jim Wright. Do you want to open his microphone, just see what he's got to say? Right, we move on. Okay, and I shall hand back to our honorary secretary to read out the results of the online ballots.
It's my duty to read out the election results for this year for posts to be held from this date on. For nominations for elected officer posts, that is directors of the company, the SMAE, no ballots were required. However, the chairman, Ian Pallister, will serve for 2 years. Finance Director, Keith Lomax, for 2 years. Outreach Director, Helen Jones, for 2 years. And Technical Director, Simon Vaitkovicius, also for 2 years. For technical committee posts, no ballot was required for the Control Line Technical Committee. And so Andy Housden, Vernon Hunt and Val James will all serve for 2 years and join the existing committee of Chris Barker, Mervyn Jones and David Wiseman. The Indoor Technical Committee, there was also no ballot. For 2 years, term Tony Hebb, Meredith Evans, Dave Whitehouse. The Scale Technical Committee, no ballot was required, and 2-year terms will be served by Steve Jackson, Graham Kennedy, and Mike Smith. And they join the existing committee of Paul Rich and Gareth Tilson. There is a 1-year co-option required on this committee. There were 2 technical committees that required ballots. The first was the Free Flight Technical Committee, where there were 5 candidates for 3 posts. Now I announce the votes as being for Ken Foe, 70, Steve Philpott, 64, David Carter, 60. This means that David Gins, who received 59 votes, and Mike Woodhouse, who received 55. Thank you for standing. I'm sorry for the disappointment that I'm sure you will feel. Therefore, the nominees will serve on the committee as follows: John Carter, Ken Foe, and Steve Philpott for 2 years, and they join the existing committee, Phil Ball, Mark Benz, and Simon Dixon. There are no vacancies on this committee. The Silent Flight Technical Committee required a ballot there were 5 candidates for 5 posts, but the ballot was required to determine who would serve for 2 years and who for 3 years. 1 year as well, or not. John Edison, 34 votes. Greg Lewis, 35. Alex Maxfield, 20. Nick Jackson, 37. And Paul Robinson, 18. So they join Steve Knowles, who is the existing committee. John Edison, Greg Lewis and Nick Jackson will serve for 2 of those years, Alex Maxfield and Paul Robinson for 1 year. There are no vacancies on this committee. And that concludes the results of this year's ballots and appointments.
Right, thank you, Paul. So that completes item 7, which just leaves item 8, which is to fix the date and venue for the 79th annual general meeting of the Society. Assuming that we keep the same, roughly the same time of year, which works as far as fitting in with other meetings and end of the financial year, etc. 2 possible dates: the 31st of October or the 7th of November. 7th of November is the day before. It's actually Remembrance Day weekend, which is on the 8th, but I don't think that should necessarily prevent us from meeting here and online on the 7th. So the board's recommendation is that we meet here for our AGM on the 7th of November 2026. and continue the arrangements of having the AGM separate from the annual awards ceremony for at least another year. So that's our recommendation. Do I have a proposer that we go for the 7th of November 2026? Proposed by Graham Kennedy, Fellow, thank you. Seconder? Seconded Mike Woodhouse, Fellow, thank you. So we just need to vote on the arrangements for next year's AGM. Those in favour of meeting here again on the... Yeah, just waiting for the online vote to come up.
Unanimous. But unanimous,
I think.
as for against.
Yeah, anyone against in the room or abstaining? It's unanimous in the room, thank you. And unanimous online. Right, it just remains for me to thank you all for your participation. Thank you to all those who've contributed. Questions are always welcome and valuable in helping us to make sure that we're doing things properly. Just a reminder to you all that our annual awards ceremony will be taking place 2 weeks today at the Radisson Blu Hotel at East Midlands Airport. Our guest of honour for that event will be Air Marshal Paul Lloyd, who's the Vice Chief of the Vice Chief of the Air Staff, basically number 2 in the RAF. Obviously someone who has the potential to be a great friend to the BMFA. He's been involved with the IMEC challenge that's been flown here for a number of years. So he's well familiar with Buckminster. He's well familiar with drone flying and such like. So we're looking forward to meeting him, and I shall certainly be discussing the availability of Barkston Heath amongst other issues. I forewarned him that he might get a shoulder poking, but I do commend to you. It's a very pleasant evening, even if you're not an award winner. It's nice to be able to recognise those that do. I remind you, it will be the first presentation of the Club of the Year award for Robin Gowler, and his wife Poppy and grandson hopefully will be there to make that first presentation. So it has the makings of being a good year. Numbers are already about 30% up on the figures for last year, which so we're looking forward to a very pleasant evening. Those of you who are here today, safe journey home, and those of you online, thank you very much for your participation, and have a great end to the flying season, and Happy New Year. Thank you. Close the meeting at 12 minutes past 3, which is 2 minutes after kick-off at Twickenham. Thank you. Vicky? Thank you. Want to think?